flying through the barrier, discovering flight with the Wright brothers. Wilbur Wright, the firstborn, he is on the right, born April 16, 1867, in Midville, Indiana. Orville Wright, on the left, was born on August 19, 1871, in Dayton, Ohio. It all started with a simple toy their dad brought home. The Wright brothers loved that toy so much. It was a simple flying toy they thought flew like a bat, so they appropriately named it the Bat. They tried to make a larger version, but their model wasn't quite the same. It failed to break the score of the original Bat of 181 feet in 11 seconds. That didn't keep them from trying again and again. Just for fun, these boys would rebuild toys, take machines apart, try to imitate how things were built, etc. They had such curious minds. As the brothers grew, they continued to master one machine after another. They worked on bicycles and decided to open a shop. They both worked at the Wright Bicycles from 1892 to 1904. In the shop, the brothers sold and fixed bikes. In 1895, the brothers started making their own bicycles. In 1902, they sold a few bikes but stopped selling altogether in 1904. They decided to morph the Wright Bicycles shop into the space they needed to create airplanes in 1909. Only 5 of their handmade bikes still exist. These are some. Sadly, Orville became ill in 1896. Orville was dedicated to his brother and read to him every night. They were consumed with stories about the death of Otto Lilienthal, a glider inventor, and other inventors whose flights failed due to their lack of control. That time together fueled their desire to conquer flight. These are some of his gliders. Wilbur and Orville found that the lack of control was the reason for failure. They soon found that the information of others was wrong too. One day, Orville was talking to a customer and not knowing, he was twisting a bike tube box. By doing this, he figured out how to create a glider that would turn. Wing warping. They found their own glider that they created was too unstable, and they turned their glider into the big kite. They learned to steer. They had to use a roll, pitch, and yaw. They were discovering the ways of flight. A roll tips the wings up and down. A pitch tips the body up and down. A yaw moves the body side to side. Overall, they tested gliders 2,000 times. With this new information, they were ready to take on the task of building a power flight machine. They went back home to Dayton, Ohio to test new wing formations. They tested over 200 formations with all different curves, styles, and shapes. They did this to create their new wing flight table. They also built their own wind tunnel. With this information, they created wings and were able to create a propeller with a rounded edge on the front and a smooth arc around the backside. They called on Charlie Taylor to make their engine with 8 to 9 horsepower, but only weighed 200 pounds. A difficult task. On December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers went back to Kitty Hawk, the same place they tested their gliders. They brought their new plane with high hopes. The wind was very strong that day, but it was their last chance to test their new plane until spring. The brothers flipped a coin to see who was going to go first. Orville won the flip. but Wilbur would run beside him during the test flight. The time has come. They were ready to fly. The crew spun the propellers to start the engine. The plane moved forward, and it actually took off. The flight was taken. The barrier was broken. The first flight only lasted 12 seconds, but forever changed the history of flight. 3 other flights were made that day. The most successful went 852 feet and lasted 59 seconds, almost a minute. Flying could only get better from here. The Wright brothers took a while to build a better version of their first model. People started to disbelieve in them and their plane, the Wright Flyer. Once they were able to build a new and improved airplane called Model B, their goal was to fly across the USA. The flight started on September 17, 1911. The plane was called the Vin Fizz after a popular soda. The plane did crash and had to be repaired many times before making it all the way across the U.S. On December 10, 1911, the airplane successfully made its journey all the way across the United States of America. A Brazilian pilot, Alberto Simões Dumont, made an airplane and a few successful flights in France, making it sound like he was the first person to make a powered flight. The Wright brothers decided to prove this misunderstood pilot wrong. Unfortunately, traveling broke the airplane. It had to be fixed before the demonstration. They proved they were not only better at flying, faster, longer, and making sharp turns. They were obviously the first inventors of flight and had a better craft. Next, the Wright brothers needed some customers, so they turned toward the military. They convinced the army that the planes would be a great way to spy on enemy armies. No one could shoot it from the ground, and you can see a lot more from up high than down low. They convinced the military, but it had to meet requirements. They built a plane named Model F. This plane met the requirements of 43 miles per hour. This plane was also the first plane to have a cockpit. Wilbur suddenly got ill with typhoid fever and died on May 30th, 1912. After Wilbur died, Orville sold the company and retired. He was often called on to give advice to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA. Orville died on January 30th, 1948. Orville's death was peaceful at his home back in Dayton, Ohio. The original plane was repaired 4 years after Wilbur's death in 1916 and put on shows around the country. The fabric was replaced 2 times, once by Orville himself and another time when the plane was cleaned and restored. The plane is 605 pounds with a wingspan of 40 feet and 4 inches. It is 21 feet and an inch long, 9 feet 4 inches tall. It is now displayed in the National Air and Space Museum for all those who come to see. It displays the Wright brothers' successful effort in breaking the flight barrier.